So yeah, welcome on board, Marja. I think you're ready for your presentation.
I am. I'm just setting up. So hello, everybody. This is going to be fun. Let's see how my screen looks like. Looks pretty good, I think.
Yeah, looking good.
Good. Cool. I will be talking about game marketing for startups, and I tried to make a presentation that is exciting for everybody, no matter if you're one guy in the team or you're a bigger corporation, and just getting a bit more inspiration for you and your daily work. But I did take a kind of red thread here that, hey, I don't have a budget. What should I do? So I'll try to give you a bit of inspiration, some ideas, kind of examples of what others have done before, and maybe you can figure out a good shoestring budget version of that for yourself as well. And in the end, I will give you a checklist of at least the stuff you have to do, and then there's a lot of cool stuff to think about. But also, I'll try to give you a guidance on how you should think when you think of marketing and how you as a marketing person can provide to the rest of the team. So let's start. Here we go. So I'm Marja, hello. My background is actually in music industry to start with, and about 15 years ago, I got a job as a QA tester in Denmark. I was working on Hitman Blood Money back then, and I absolutely fell in love with games industry. It was just something I just couldn't really go away from anymore at that point. So I just had to stick with it. I did have a couple of years in advertising in between. I did marketing and digital advertising there. And then I found an excellent job, which was Rovio in the heydays of Angry Birds, and I got to do stuff that I really, really enjoy. So I've been doing games marketing for the last 10 years, from really small startups to actually concept testing in publishing side to bigger corporations as well, and running games in live ops. So I feel like I've done it all to some extent, but of course there's plenty to learn, and that's what I really love with game industry. It never really stops giving you opportunities to learn more. There's so many nice things to figure out. There's new tools, there's new ways of doing, the business models change. So there's plenty of stuff. It just never gets boring. So yeah, today's agenda will be how to start. How do you think like a marketing person? What is actually marketing, and how does it look like to the external audiences as well as the modern audience, like the marketing people? And then how do you plan marketing? What are the things you need to consider when you put your marketing plan together? What does a marketing plan actually mean? I'll give you a bit of examples from the history of games marketing. I think this is pretty exciting. There's some cool stuff you've definitely seen before. And then we'll go into the actual boring marketing, which is the 4 Ps. This is a classic theory of marketing. So we'll use an example method on how to think about marketing. And then at the end, we'll do the checklist of marketing assets. And then I'll leave you with a customer life cycle. What does that mean? So where do you start with marketing? There's plenty to do before the game is actually playable. So marketing can really input into the development there. You are part of a development team, and you can really input there with your marketing perspective. We quite often talk about data-driven marketing, but maybe you should think about like being informed by data, by numbers, and all the knowledge you can gather, and sharing that with the team. So start early. It will guide you onwards, but also make you collect more information and test and optimize also throughout the whole process of development. So you have numbers to prove that what you've done, was it a good one, not so good? How can you optimize? Then try to find the right tools. They can be quite expensive, but there's plenty of good attribution tools, affordable tools to use as well. Google Play is a great way to do A/B testing, so you can actually test a lot of the marketing assets there. Then, of course, you should be trying to do some ads and running those with Google's ad system, universal app campaign system, or Facebook ads, so you understand a bit of what kind of clicks might be working for you, what kind of audiences you want to bring into your game. And then there's analytics. Please figure out some way of at least looking at analytics. For example, Sensor Tower and App Annie both have a way to get at least some guidance on how your app is doing there, if you're working on a mobile app, for example. And then, of course, like email lists and CRMs, there's plenty of marketing tools to include later on. But of course, a small team doesn't have huge resources when it comes to money or people. So a startup thinking, I think, is really essential. in the development phase, there's always downtime. So that might be an opportunity for you to wear a different hat. So I recommend that as well. You're never a marketing person alone. You're always doing something else. So certain things that I recommend doing is doing research. So market research or surveys, interview anybody, get information and understand people, talk to people, and then A/B test it as well. So you have numbers as well as real feelings and emotions that you're getting from people. QA, I think, as I started in the industry as a QA person, I think it was the best way for me to understand the development and how it looks like from that side. So I've been doing this even in my latest job, just QAing the product, because that makes you understand the product, you get to know it really well, and you know how it works. And it's not just because of that, it's also crash rates. So as a marketing person, I am considering algorithms, how my app is being recommended in Google Play, for example. Crash rates matter. So if I can help with minimizing those crash rates, that also helps my marketing. Business development, another topic and a hat to wear. This is something marketing person can definitely take on. And as in the earlier discussion with Mike, marketing person can be the person who goes on stage and really is the brand ambassador. But you can also talk with app store editors or store owners, or you can find commercial partners, opportunities. And somebody needs to talk with the press as well. So it's a cool opportunity to talk with all kinds of people and really pitch your product continuously. UA is usually something that, especially in a smaller team, a marketing person would be taking care of. You might not have millions to spend in your UA campaigns, but it's worth getting some paid users because you get to test your product and see how they are. For example, if you're testing retention, you can see how they're doing there. So you have your paid cohort. You can start understanding how your users are behaving. And then customer support, that's also marketing. Ideally, you want to make sure that your reviews and ratings are really good. You want to answer to those reviews, for example, in the App Store, and make sure that people are happy with your product. If you actually gain people to play your game, you want to make sure that they love it and you're able to listen to them. And whatever they are saying, it's valuable feedback that you might be able to take back to your development team. So definitely consider also customer support. Marketing is never ending in the time that people play your game. It's also understanding why they're playing it and why they are not playing it. So talk to your customers. So how does marketing look like? This is pretty important, actually. For an outsider, it might look like this, that there's a game announcement, there's a bit of build-up, for example, pre-orders, and then there's a launch, and then there's live ops. But internally, it looks quite different. A lot of the work happens before launch, of course, not just development, but also marketing. There's a whole bunch of research that formulates the strategy, you're understanding what the product's about. So you can form a strategy for the steps ahead, then you plan it, and then you start executing. And live ops is a great place where you get to do it all again and learn from the mistakes and create new opportunities. So it's really never ending. But this is how it might look like. So a marketing funnel, this is a magic word that we all keep on talking about, but what does that actually mean? For the marketer, it means work. It starts with the research. So you want to be informed. You want to understand your target audience. You need to dig deep as much as you can to define who's your actual player. It's not everybody. It never is everybody. There's certain specific features that these people have in common. It might be a niche. It might be really, really specific. So figure out what it is and figure out where you can find more of them. Then start scaling up. You need to understand their interests and what they're looking for. For example, a lot of guys are actually playing for the social interaction. So they're playing with their friends. It doesn't even matter what game they're playing because it's fun time chatting with your friends. Maybe that's a good psychological thing to understand about your gamers. How can you actually serve that need even more? Do you have some social features that you want to pitch in? So understand your user and start creating suitable content for them and information they might be interested in, and be present wherever they are. If they're at the Reddit forums, you should be there too. Then you start thinking about your key selling points. And this is all about understanding your product. So what actually makes your product interesting? How do you pitch it? How do you explain your product? How will you sell this? So formulate, say, 3 to 5 selling points and start testing them until you are totally sure that you figured it out. You can use A/B testing, for example. They might be screenshots in your app store. See what works. Are they performing well? This is really, really important. This will give you guidance later on as well. And then you figure out the channel. So how will you reach these people? What kind of channels and activities you should be using? In the craft, there's a couple of examples like ads or making trailers. There's different kind of things you can do here. And you should focus here. Figure out the key points that will really work for you. Then when you have these figured out, then you start actually moving to the execution and get it out there in the open for people to see. But make sure that you focus. So there's a million things to do. You're not going to be doing all of these. It just doesn't make any sense. So you need to have the understanding of your product and your target audience in order to choose the right ways to concentrate on. Your time is also money. Don't forget that. So it's not about budgets. It's also how you want to spend your time. Pick the ones that are actually priorities for you. Let's get some inspiration. It's not just about the budget. We should be also thinking about the creative part of the work. So I think the best way is, of course, learning from the best and then improving it, modifying it to your needs. There's no playbook to do marketing. There really isn't a checklist like that because the industry is constantly changing. Your game is different from the others, but there's plenty of cool things we can get inspired by. And then you figure it out if it fits you and how can you maybe execute it in your way with your resources. So let's have a look at the brief history of game marketing. Games started from the arcades where the kids were flocking in at malls and playing together. It was really social time and playing together. And then, yeah, well, if you think about those games, they were fairly easy to pick up, but they were challenging enough for you to keep coming back. You wanted to play those with your friends there. And then soon the games became available also in the living rooms for the families. At this point, advertising for games happened in magazines. The box and the packaging was really important, how people would pick up a new game as well. It was really about technical details as well. And not that long time after that, the messaging really became about the fun. Nintendo was really great at this, like, hey, let's play together. It's playtime with your friends. Word of mouth was really important as well. There was a lot of like Easter eggs hidden in the game because people would talk about those and exchange games, and kind of certain games became popular because of that. Then we started seeing the rise of the entertainment and family brands, like character brands. A lot of the storytelling and character-driven games were at the front row of the marketing, and editorial art became really, really important, very similar to what it is now. We put a lot of effort into visuals. And this is also where the trailers became really important because they were a way to showcase the game and not just the gameplay, but there's like another story around it. And then you start seeing the fandom becoming a thing, licensing and merchandising. Fans really want to wear those characters and the visuals also on their shirts. This might be also time for billboard ads and TV ads, kind of similar to the movie industry. And mobile games are having a bit of a heyday on those now. Then Steam comes and challenges a lot of this. That really changed the game because it was about the community and finding the gems within the big platform. So indies were able to start publishing, and it's all about a good product that is worth sharing with others. Player reviews, recommendations matter a lot. And then we get to the mobile games where it's all about, I don't know, there's like pre-installed premium games, free-to-play games, subscription-based games. So the monetization changed. And with that, the user acquisition became way more important than anything else. You are able to target one specific person that is going to be your whale. So mobile advertising is really targeted. It's very like quite a art of its own. And this is where App Store optimization starts mattering and understanding what algorithm will pick your game and recommend it to the others. But now we're also starting to see a bit of the classic marketing coming back with esports, really a traditional way of marketing with sponsored products and endorsements, the logos on the gamer shirts. But also there's the cool twist, which is streaming and viewer relationships. So the marketing is not just about the logos there. There's all kinds of ways of looking at how esports are changing the game there. What can we learn from that? So I think few things that we should definitely pay attention to when it comes to bigger games. Character brands, something that you have an emotional contact with. I think there's quite a few games nowadays as well that are really putting a lot of effort into creating a brand based on characters. Then there's Nintendo Wii, which was great for the blue ocean of finding a totally new audience and communicating with that audience in a really different way. Traditionally, nobody had been throwing like grandmas playing games in their living rooms, and they really hit that market. They were able to show that Nintendo Wii was for a completely new way of playing, not just for the gamers. And then the marketing big bucks like the Halo 3 $10 million campaign. Maybe we don't have those budgets, but what can we learn from them? Trailers, Hollywood style trailers, hype building like Cyberpunk one. That was years ahead when they started building up the hype before the product was available. Can you get something out of that for your product as well? Then there's, of course, the traditional way of doing an announcement at trade shows. Maybe there's some teaser trailers, some teaser content that you can also start pushing out a bit before your product is out there. Maybe we don't talk about celebrities and brand awareness through that, but maybe we think about the mid-level influencers that are able to help our game to rise up the ranks. I think it's just important to remember that there's a fan match. So we need to understand our target audiences and figure out our marketing strategy based on that, so that they're actually meeting somewhere in the middle. You want to make sure that your influencers or your celebrities, if you get to work with some, are actually fitting to the game and the target audience. So there's no huge gap between those two. So let's go into the marketing. How do you plan marketing? I'm going to use a very classic framework called the 4 Ps. This is actually a really good link, and I have it at the end of the presentation. It's Intel's Get Ready, the 4 Ps of marketing for indie game developers. So this is mainly for developers, but I wanted to use this to also consider marketing. So we can look at the product, its potential, kind of understand the competition and figure out our strategy and plan it with this one. So use it for both development and marketing planning. It's quite simple. So number 1, product. Know it by heart. What actually sets your game apart? Is it the gameplay, the quality, the design, the silliness of it? What are the features that makes it really special? Play it and learn from it. But learn also from your competitors. You should do an analysis to figure out your strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats, and really go classic with this one, because it will give you a whole bunch of ideas on what you could be using from those in your marketing plan. This is also a good time to think about your product's positioning and the values, so the KSPs, the key selling points, because those will formulate your advertising, your elevator pitch, your app store description, all the screenshots, images, videos. Those are the things you're wanting to communicate. So start thinking about them pretty early on, and learn more from your users if you have them, interview them, and do a lot of QA. Then second part, price. In more traditional industries, marketing definitely can input on pricing. In games, not so often, because business models are different, but your input is still valuable. It's really important that we understand where we can input into the pricing. So let's spin it into marketing thinking. What is the revenue model? Is it premium? What's the price point in a premium thing? Do you have really cool in-app purchases or DLCs that marketing can help pushing? Do we have seasonal discounts? If your product is subscription-based, what's the price point of that? Marketing can do those tests and also interview people and understand if the price point is right. Because you need to consider also perceived value. You might be selling something too cheap. Some things just feel really cheap, and the quality doesn't really communicate through a cheap price. So you might have to just test it out and see what works. I think one point to make here is like Rocket League. I think their pricing system was also a marketing plan. They originally launched on PlayStation Plus as a free game service, and then on Steam for a fee, which created awareness and interest, and then monetized it on another platform. And Steam promotions are huge drivers. For example, one of the key things for Among Us was a Steam promotion that reached the right people. So this is a key. It's a both limitation and opportunities placement. Where do you find your game? If you're self-publishing in App Store, There are plenty of marketing assets and activities to run, but if you're publishing in Steam, they're more limited, maybe UA-wise, like you cannot really do a lot of ads there, but you can try various Steam-specific activities. So think of the store owners too as partners. They are always looking for quality content. So you remember to highlight your products and what you're doing in marketing, because this is what's really interesting to them, and participate in their programs and sales. And then fourth P is the promotion. So activities. What are you going to be doing? Where do you find your target audiences and how do you reach them? Make sure that you're putting a lot of effort into creating the content that you are in control of. So your own media, your website, your social media channels, the storefronts. And if you identify some influencers or streamers who are already playing your product, maybe you could partner with them and use some of their content in your advertising. Worth the shot. Maybe you need to pay some mid-sized influencers to endorse it. Maybe it's worth the money. Or for example, seriously, with Best Fiends, they reached outside the gaming community and they identified that their audience don't play yet, but they watch baking channels on YouTube. So maybe you can partner up with somebody who is not a gamer, but is interesting to your target audience and get visibility through that. So talking about the stuff you are in control of, this is your checklist. Make sure that your storefront is in order. This is the most important step because this is where all the traffic goes to. This is where they make that decision to download or buy. It's the most important thing and you are in control of it. So think of the title. What is your game called? Is it a really, really good title that describes it? Is it ranking highly? Is it really special that people will remember? Think about the text and how you write about it. What's your tone of voice? And then the visuals, so the screenshots and the icon, you need to test these. It's super important. If you're working on a trailer video, does it stand out? Is it really amazing? Try to make it as much as you can. And then even the reviews and ratings. So the algorithms do pick up on that. Make sure that you reply to people and listen to them. If they have something to say, it's worth listening to. And then the visual effect assets. So when you're planning this stuff, if you're making a trailer video, try to get also some gameplay content that you have shared on your YouTube channel, for example. While you're at it, could you also edit a 15-second ad that you could run? And I think Mike also mentioned this one. You need to capture attention really, really early on. So in marketing as well, this is even harder. You have 3 seconds. So if you're using the first 5 seconds of your 15-second video to spin your logo around, you might have lost that attention. So the first 3-5 seconds really matter. Try to figure out something that makes sense there, something that looks amazing. And one thing that is quite often forgotten, but is really important, is the business-oriented content. So do you have an investor deck or sales deck already? Well, how are you going to be selling this to the B2B audiences or your business audiences? How do you pitch your company? How do you pitch your team? How do you pitch your game? Write down the boilerplate, so the little description of your company that you have in your press releases, because you're going to need that one day. And hey, what about posting some photos of your team? Maybe that's a nice way of showing who you guys are. So that was a checklist, and I'm going to leave you with this before we end this session. I've been speaking really quickly, so I hope you're able to keep up with this. One thing I really think is important in marketing is to understand the consumer and really go into their shoes. Devs usually talk about the first-time user experience. Marketing needs to start a bit earlier than that. So we think about the steps before they come into the game. So think about the full journey as a consumer. How do they find the games they want to play? When do they want to play? Where they're going to be looking for games? What kind of stuff they will be looking for? Why would they pick yours? And what is the experience of this product? And let's not forget that there's an opportunity to love the product and refer it to others at the end of it as well. So there's a lot of opportunities here, but then there's the caveat. So really identify the opportunities and risks and know where you can, as a marketing person, help and plan ahead. So a lot of these things actually drop into these kind of marketing buckets where you are able to say that, hey, I already thought about that. This is where we should be having this kind of messaging in the app when they're just about to turn out. We can do a really cool in-app message on the 7th and the 30th day, or we can do a really cool seasonal update in this point, because this is going to bring people back to the game and or create a bit more retention. And how are we serving the loyalty? So if we have users that love the product, how are we able to let them invite their friends in or write a raving review? Are we able to use that as a testimonial? So just really think as the consumer, the different feelings, the different steps in the life cycle that they have, and how are you taking those in consideration? This is not something that you need to have in your marketing plan, but I think this is something like kind of like an exercise for you to go through as you start understanding your target audience and the steps that they take. And I'm hoping that this is relevant for both the smaller teams as well as the bigger teams. No matter what platform you're making your games for, because you are still making your games for consumers, for real people. So consider them and understand what they do. So here's the recap. The harsh truth. Marketing is about understanding users, planning and executing a lot of the steps that you've decided to take, and then doing it all over again. It just never ends. There is no end to marketing, I'm afraid. One key thing is to learn from everything, because you wear hats. You wear all the different hats that you can. Try to understand everybody in your team, what they do, and how the consumer might be interacting with those different points. Take that in consideration. And then even with tiniest little resources that you have available, you have those marketing assets that you own, put all the effort into those at least. They really matter. Your storefront is the most important place. And remember that your time is also money, so focus only on the most key things and do them well. Don't stretch yourself too much. So I definitely recommend you to have a look at that Intel 4P framework. It might be handy for you as a developer as well as a marketing person. Figure out what you can do there. And thank you. Share me. So you can definitely add me on LinkedIn if you want to discuss marketing further. And happy to also answer your questions. And if there's any mentoring you need on the marketing side, I will be available for that. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Marja. Great presentation. I think lots of things to kind of consider here for each of the attendees. We've got a bunch of questions here, so I'm guessing we'll talk quite a bit more about marketing. First question, I think this was kind of might be a hard question to answer, but how much of your resources do you think you should dedicate for each of the 4 Ps? How do you think it differs from like if you're running a free-to-play game or if you're using a premium monetization model?
Gosh, yeah, I guess that's really based on the team and the product. There is no way to say this. There's no general truth to this one. I think knowing the product is really the key. Like you cannot make marketing in a vacuum. You need to understand the product, and of course you know your team as well when you can leverage some of those assets. Maybe there's somebody in your team that is excellent in doing streams on YouTube. What about getting them to do that while they're working on the next update? You need to be innovative, and especially when you have no resources, you need to understand what your existing resources are already. I wouldn't worry about the price point at this point if you have absolutely no resources, because you as a team will be deciding those no matter how your business model is. Then, as I mentioned, the focus part, I'm going to say that again because it's so important, and I've been in that situation so many times that you have all these exciting opportunities. There's hundreds of cool things to do, and it's quite overwhelming. So pick 2 and make those really well. Maybe it's about finding the right activities, but all in all, it all boils down to understanding, doing a lot of research. So everything you can learn, put it into some kind of document that is available for all the team. Keep them up to date and communicate all your learnings, because creating a persona of your gamer might be the key thing that changes the update that you're doing next.
Yeah. speaking of like marketing budgets, if you kind of lack the funds to do any kind of massive marketing, which channels would you kind of recommend for someone with a kind of zero marketing budget? Is there like a key rule to this?
Certainly not. Actually, I've been working on such different games that I've started to really realize that there is absolutely no playbook for this one. My latest project has been for kids, so I'm not going to say that Steam is the best place to do anything for kids, because they are not there. They're not on YouTube either. They are actually nowhere to be found. So we had to really consider that where are the kids' parents and how do we target them, and understanding how they spend their little free time and what kind of stuff we want to talk to them about. So for example, for Hatch Kids, one of the key learnings was that our parents that we were targeting don't really hang out online. They don't have a lot of time for that, but they do read the news. So where we were able to get out actual news about a very useful product that all the parents should be using, that gave us a lot of downloads every time. So we were able to kind of figure out a very different way of user acquisition using traditional newspapers. So that was quite funny. And kids trade shows. For something that is Steam specific, I think itch.io is obviously the place where a lot of the traffic will be coming through. If your game is silly, it might be just a viral effect that you just want to push a bit. So you're kind of making the buzz yourself and hoping that somebody will pick it up and there will be a whole bunch of people coming to play. There really isn't one place, because you need to understand your target audience. And for example, maybe your audience is TikTokers, and there's cool ways to get those people excited as well. Then you talk with TikTok influencers or use some of their streaming capacities.
Yeah, so lots of routes to go to here. For a startup with no kind of previous marketing experience, is it wise to kind of outsource marketing immediately to a kind of expert, or do you really have to learn it yourself by heart?
That's a good question, actually. I think both are valid options. I wouldn't put a lot of money into it, like externalizing it really early on, because what are you getting out of it? If you're just wanting to get some press, you're not getting far with that. What is your actual goal in order to do marketing? If you're getting testers or downloads or press awareness, you figure that out first, and then you figure out how much money can you input into that. I know a lot of companies who like to do press releases, but that really doesn't give you anything else than business credibility. If that's what you want, go for it. Otherwise, I would definitely recommend it as a team effort of just having fun with marketing, because it's also something that can be really cool to do together internally. You guys have to kind of formulate the tone of voice and what kind of marketing do you want to do? How does the game look like when you externalize it into pictures and videos? And yeah, if you have 20,000 to use on gameplay trailer, or can you actually do that for absolutely no money at all? You know where the wow moments are in your game. I'm sure you can also capture that video and put it online and make sure that people see it. That's what I really like with games industry as well, that you can actually use the industry contacts to test out things, ask people to come and test, give feedback, and also make different kind of edits of your video and stream it to just push it to the Facebook groups that we have. People will comment, definitely, and if it's cool, they will share it as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly what I like about the industry as well. So how far, should you plan your marketing activities, or can you actually plan too far ahead? Is the kind of marketing landscape changing constantly? Because I know the industry is changing constantly.
Yes, absolutely, and it's the same as well that. Yeah, you might have the best plan, but something else happens. So you need to revise the whole marketing plan, or just ramp it down or ramp it up, depending what happens. So that's why I think a strategy is really important. It sounds like a buzzword, but I think it's been always really important for me to have the bigger vision behind before I actually start planning the execution and the steps ahead. So there's a strategy of these are the things we want to reach throughout this, whatever, how long the marketing campaign runs for. And these are the things we want to make an impact on. So for example, there's a couple of numbers that we want to do, or reaching these kind of audiences, and we want them to do this inside the game. And you can always fall back on that because that rarely changes. The bigger level strategy rarely changes, but then the steps will be changing and you need to constantly optimize. And there'll be failures. You'll be putting money into silly things that really didn't gain anything, except the learning of, I'll never do this again, or I might do it a different way next time. So definitely worth being on your toes constantly, knowing that things will change.
Yeah, sure. How often then you kind of update your marketing strategy? Do you create one early on and just go with it, or is it like more practical to adapt it later on?
Depends on the timing of the product. If I'm really lucky and I get to work on a product before it's out, that means that I have enough time to actually research on the product and the target audiences and formulate the learnings into one. That learnings document never changes because it gets updated, but it's pretty much the same. So it's a lot of like competitor analysis and kind of taking learnings from that and interpreting them into certain action points. So I rarely change that, but I do visit it quite often. And whenever there's a new person joining the team, I actually give them a really long briefing into marketing and what are we going to be doing and how that impacts the development. And then usually we revisit marketing planning whenever there's a bigger update or any other bigger features that are coming ahead, or maybe there's a request from marketing for a feature because we've noticed that a competitor might have something that we don't have. So that would be a time to go and change everything again.
Yeah. Okay. I think we have time for at least one more question. So I think this is a really important one. So you stressed this before in your presentation already, but just to get back to it. So how much actual effort should you put on these marketing assets on e.g. like Play Store or App Store? Or within Steam. So I guess you just can't emphasize this part enough, right?
Yes, as much as you can. It's really, really important. And if you can quantify it somehow through A/B testing, I think that's really important. Gut feeling is good, but it's not the truth. And you're going to be getting different data as you continue going forward. So if you can test your storefront, if it's a Steam page or your App Store page, you really need to figure out what converts. Is there different banners that work really better or call to actions that certain words that seem to be performing better? Try to plan those ahead well enough. Maybe it's just a kind of overarching plan that every 2 weeks we're going to try another one and we test these two things together, and then you figure out what the copy is, or is it a visual that you're fighting against each other. But try to plan the testing ahead of time and make sure that you stick to this because you might be getting huge improvements. And if it's not improving, then you don't do the changes. So of course, there's like many games where the icon hasn't changed for 2 years because they just cannot find a better performing asset. That's fine. As a branding person, I'm like, ooh, bleeding because it would be nice to refresh the brand at times. But if it's not performing as well as the existing one, it doesn't make any sense to make a worse icon than what exists already. But yes, definitely put resources into at least that part because that's the only thing that really, really matters and you have all the control over.
Yeah, I guess that's like directly influences the people that are actually buying your product. Are there some like best practices or guides from Google or Apple to how do you do this, or have you bumped into any of those?
Yes, well, at least in mobile advertising, there are plenty of ASO tricks on what are the things you should be prioritizing. It's ASO basically is the word for that. So you can find out pretty good tips and tricks on what kind of graphics work, what kind of icons work. I think Game Refinery also has a couple of tools for that. At least they tend to have those like icon testing type of things. A/B testing in console in Google Play is free and you can do it constantly. You can test pretty much most of the ASO elements. And that's super simple to do. Anybody can do that, even me. So definitely definitely try that. On Steam is a bit trickier, but definitely worth also testing out a few things there and see what people say. Learning from your comments is already a big win.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that's just about it time-wise. So thank you very much, Marja, for this presentation. I'm sure you'll get a lot of more questions via chat and here in the Q&A. So if you have time to look those up, please answer those. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.